Good day, everybody. Wolf Driver coming at you live. Once again, we're in that sweet, what I'm going to call that sweet time slot, 1 o'clock-ish hour on the East Coast. On Tuesdays, we like doing live broadcast on Tuesday. So before I go into our topic for the day, technological enrichment, I'm going to tell you about the video that you're watching, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of movement there. That's because it's kind of behind the scenes right now. This is how we set up to run the dogs. Now, this is as new as yesterday. So we were on the D&L Trail, which is Delaware and Lehigh, on the Black Diamond Trailhead is where we started. I forgot to look it up. I knew it, but it's more than 150 miles. We were at the 140-mile marker approximately where we started at the Black Diamond Trailhead. And what's so cool about it is that it's in a really, well, it travels a long way in Pennsylvania, as you can imagine me telling you how long it is, but it goes through some really neat areas. Where we were at yesterday, not so much historic per se, but there's areas like on the Delaware River where George Washington crossed it, and that they have reenactments there. So we've gone past there, and then it goes through the town of New Hope. And it's just a real small, quaint town. Really, it sticks out in my mind just because it's really cool. It's got a lot of great areas in New Hope. So that's all part of the D&L Trail. And there's another part that is the most spectacular part to me called the Lehigh Gorge. And that's almost, if you know what a gorge is, like there's mountains surrounding you and the river cuts through it. And there's a trail there because the railroad used to run through there. So it's a rail trail, and that's all part of the D&L, the Delaware and Lehigh Trail. But the Lehigh Gorge is, oh my gosh, spectacular. We've done it quite a few times. Haven't done it lately. So where we ended yesterday, coming from the Black Diamond Trailhead, about 11 miles, we got 10 and a half. If we crossed into that 11th mile, we would have been at the entrance to the Lehigh Gorge. And once you go into the Lehigh Gorge, there's no getting out of it unless you turn around or you finish it. I think it's like 12 or 13 miles. And if you get to go somewhere, I mean, it's really secluded, so you want to make sure you have some sort of safety gear or whatever, just in case, your bike would break down or something would happen. Remember, I'm always with a team. I've got satellite phones, so I can get help, and I'm with help if needed, but it still can be a little challenging. By the way, please go ahead and comment or ask me questions or tell me you hate me or tell me you love me, whatever, because the chat line's open, and I'm wearing the goggles so I can read the chats as soon as they come in. But with the video here, I'm gonna bump it forward a little bit just because we're sitting around, and there you can see I loaded the third dog, and at that point my co-pilot usually is over there with me when we're loading the dogs up. But with the three, and we were kind of isolated yesterday, he was doing some other work getting ready because we were going to do some technological enrichment like I've been talking about on the trail. So he was getting the Coyote on Wheels. If you've been following me, you've seen that. He was getting that ready, so he needed some extra time. And we were getting later in the day. Now it was a nice day out. It's always too warm for the Huskies, but it was cool enough to do what we do in the low 70s, 57% humidity, I think it was, and the ground temperature was about 65 degrees. So the three dogs, I can load them all up. I could do this all by myself, but it's a lot more work and not as readily accessible. So Lucy, NYU, have you done the blueprints yet? So great for asking me, Lucy. We are working on them. The problem is I need an engineer to really get exact dimensions and everything thoroughly done. So it's coming. I've been in touch with them. They know what I want. And give me a couple weeks for sure. Ask me every time you see me. Put it on every one of my videos. Comment all the time. You're never bugging me. I want to keep getting asked because I've gotten so many requests, and I'm proud of that. I'm really excited that so many people want to get involved because they see the value in it. A lot of people have this saying, but I use it a lot. If you know, you know. Like some people look at this and say, why? And then some people will look at it and say, oh my gosh, I want to do that. I need to do that. I got to do that. So those are the people that it really appeals to, but there's a lot of them because all these social media companies are really good at their algorithms, and they're focused and giving me the right people that have similar breeds, that have similar needs. So a lot of people are asking me about them. So they are coming to you. I promise. Keep asking me. And thank you so much, Lucy, for the comments. So you can see I've got the 4 dogs here, and they are now loaded up. Now, this bar to you, and Lucy, you'll be interested in this because this is another one of the designs, but it works off the main design. This bar here, and it looks like the bar out in front is kind of just wiggling. Lucy, that's what you said on Facebook last time. It's like, should I ask? Wait, he asks every time. Okay, I'm asking. Lots of laughs. I know. I wish I could just go like that and they're done. But please understand that just I'm a one-man show, basically. I've got a team, but we're out running the dogs all the time. So my team is focused on that, and nobody's qualified on my team to make these. So I've got to outsource it. So I am working on it, I promise you. But you can see us here. So what I wanted to tell you was that bar you see where the end of it is shaking a lot, that's part of the design, and that's even easier than using the U-bar. So that's something that I can more readily share. So I'm going to try to do this one first. I call this the mid mushing bar. And if you see the springs coming off of that, I know my big kid's in front of it now, but the springs coming off of it are actually springers. There's something you get on Amazon. And the bar is something you can get at the metal shop. And you only need a little bit of welding to secure those springers to that bar, which makes it actually modular. So you can move this bar wherever you need to move, no matter what size your dogs are, relatively speaking, and you can take it down and put it together for travel, transport, etc. So it's really cool, and this is a great design too. This, I call it the mid-level mushing bar because we can use this more when it starts to get cooler, when it starts to get more favorable conditions for the Huskies. Obviously, the colder the better. So what it provides for them is the ability to engage more. And what I mean by that is they can actually pull harder and they can run faster. Not maximum yet on this bar, but on the final bar, you'll see when we get into the real winter cold, hopefully Arctic cold, that's when I put a different harness, which is a full body harness on them. And I put on a longer mushing bar, not the mid mushing bar, the long mushing bar, which spreads them apart further and gives them more range of motion, more leverage to get involved. Cheryl Kovadak, guidance and adventures is needed with these girls. Great creations for everyday use. Carry on. Again, Cheryl, I can't thank you enough for all the support, all the input, and all the funny comments. Everything you put on there is just valuable. I really appreciate it. So, yeah, you saw yesterday. This is yesterday's adventure, by the way, happening right in front of your eyes. So I'm explaining this mid-mushing bar, given the guidance that it gives the Huskies more range of motion, which is, as we're getting into season, temperatures are getting lower. They don't need the full containment, I call it, or the roll bars, actually, U-bars, M-bars, etc., where you see where they have on each side, they're tethered. They're tethered here in 2 points, too, on the back of the harness so they can get more pulling power, more speed, and on the collar neckline, what they do with most sled dogs, you'll see them tethered to each other or to the gang line or tug line, they call it, to keep them straight, keep them in line, basically. And that's what it does here. There's no pressure on the neck. So this is a real easy contraption to build, for lack of a better description. A real, anyone can do this, just a little bit of welding, but almost everybody's got a welding area, someone that works at metal in their town, in their area they're at. Christy Loudon, hey guys, go girls, go. Hope you all are having a great day. Hey, right back at you, Christy. Really appreciate it. Again, all the support, all the great comments, questions, everything you send. I appreciate that. And Rod, do you have a question?
Yeah, Instagram, we got Jeremy Brinker. He says the dogs are on fire.
Jeremy, thanks so much. I appreciate that. They are on fire. And one of the reasons was, and that's why I call this technological enrichment, because yesterday we were using what I call the coyote on wheels. We were using basically a coyote decoy. Yes, Rod.
And he had a follow-up asking, what state are you in?
So in this video, we are in Pennsylvania. We're broadcasting from today, but a different area. This is probably 3 hours, 4 hours from here. Christy Loudon, oops, forgot one. That makes 4 Huskies. She put some emojis on the Huskies, and she knows I got 4 of them. So thanks so much again, Christy. Yes, here we're in Pennsylvania at the DNL Trail, which stands for Delaware and Lehigh, because it comes near or in the vicinity or parallels in some places the Delaware and Lehigh rivers. And of course, the Delaware River is where George Washington crossed. And there's actually the area where they crossed. We're not going to pass that today. It's over 150 miles long, this trail, but we have done it in the past, and they have a reenactment once a year, I believe it is, of George Washington actually crossing the trail. So we're making our way through this trail. So it's a little narrower of a trail, but again, because of all my equipment, or most of my equipment, is that we take on the rail trails, are built on trikes or the recumbent quads, bikes, etc., that are trail worthy or trail legitimate. What I mean by that is they're approved for trails, and a lot of people out there ride them. The only difference is mine is longer because of the dog bar, the mushing bar out in front. So we're not any wider, which makes us able to go through all the different bollards and the trail poles, the trail gates, etc. We fit through them like everybody else. Now, it can be a little more challenging because we are so long, and that's why the dog's cooperating in some way. You've seen them before, and I'll post them again, of us going through the trail gates. And sometimes the dogs will come in just to make it through. Like on this bar, they can be wider, but because of the structure of everything, we're still narrower, and all they have to do is push in, and they do that really well. So, and that's part of the training and part of their understanding. But with this setup, again, giving them more range of motion and more leverage, they can get more speed and more pulling power, so they get more engagement. With that more engagement, they are more exertion, and that's where it gets too hot for them. So that's where people see me and they say, oh my gosh, it's too hot. You can't work those dogs like that. Well, when I'm working the other configuration, even this one, almost all of them, I have almost full control on their exertion levels. But because as I move up, as we get colder, I give them more range of motion, more leverage. That exertion level, they can control more of it. And that lets them do more, engage more. And that's where they can heat up more, basically. So we got to catch Frankie full of love. It's so good to see you, Frankie. Thanks so much for joining the live broadcast here. So she says, Frankie says, so good to see you and your pups and hear your valuable information. I so appreciate that. I really do. And it's for everybody out there that makes that comments and supports what I do and asks tough questions sometimes, doubts what I'm doing, whatever. That all makes it possible because all the interaction is what helps other people learn. So even people that hate what I'm doing, they get out there and learn, and sometimes they realize the value in it. Like you mentioned, Frankie, they realize that, and they're like, oh, they get a different outlook on it. And if they're thinking about getting a working breed, like a sled dog breed, like a husky, or they have one, they get new ideas for them, and they helps them decide, is this the right dog for me, if they're thinking about adopting them or talking to friends that might have them, etc. So I think the conversation is the most important thing we can have, because people will learn and be able to make better judgments and better understanding. And what I say is it's always about the betterment of the breeds, of all dogs, really. And that's why I've worked with shelters in the past. There's so many at times. The husky is one of the most abandoned and surrendered breed, especially when we talk about they look like the dire wolves in Game of Thrones. And of course, the Snow Dog movies, they all people all want to get them because they're beautiful, they're handsome, they're gorgeous. Rod says we have another question.
Jeremy on Instagram with a follow-up say beautiful scenery.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy. This trail that we're on the Black Diamond Trailhead on the Delaware and Lehigh here is a gorgeous trail, and it's a great section because it's only really 11 miles. So now those 11 miles are few and far between. And what I mean by that, there's kind of limited access. So depending on what you're doing, if you're going by yourself and you're comfortable with doing 11 miles, you're not concerned your bike's going to have an issue or whatever, because I think there might be a cutoff somewhere in between there. You can get access to a road, but it's like real private and real residential, because I've done it before. We got into this trail once, and it was too much snow, believe it or not, and for my wheeled rigs. So that became a problem, and we had to get picked up early. pause here for a second. Lucy, NYU, I have Huskies and Samoyeds, but a friend of mine was asking me if the Aussies could do this. What's your opinion on herding breeds doing this? That's a good question. Other people have asked me, and I'm not as familiar with herding breeds, but because of a lot of my configurations, you don't need a lead sled dog. So therefore, almost any dog can do it. Into what capacity is going to depend on the breed and the individual dog. What I mean by that is my Chinese Crested, who's a toy breed, all of 14 pounds, she's actually goes on some of my rigs, especially my one scooter. I've got a special line for her that keeps her from ever touching a wheel because she's small. If she touches a wheel, it could be very problematic. But this arm keeps her from reaching them, and she gets out there and she's done a few miles with us. She loved it. She's done a few miles by herself, and then she's done them with all the sled dog team, with all the Huskies. That was a previous generation. She's still hanging out. She's 10 years old. I don't take her out as much because her mom, my wife, is always doing other stuff with her that she likes to do with her. But I'll make a note of it that when we put her on the scooter and we had my wife, her mom, actually lead us in the car. She was just in the car. She was running faster than the sled dogs, the Chinese Crest. It was really fun. So I think the Aussies, I think almost all breeds can do this. And that's what I say to everybody, because I know other people that have done it with other breeds. Actually, my friend with German Shepherds, he trains German Shepherds, and I've explained about him. Schutzen, in Schutzen, which is German protection work. We've actually had his Shepherds on there. I think we had Rottweilers on there. So almost all breeds can do it. The Husky and the sled dog breeds are going to have the most endurance. So you're going to be talking miles and miles and miles. Rod said we have a question here.
From Instagram, we have Zero Trace. People just don't realize that these are a lot of dogs. Definitely not for the casual owner.
Exactly. And that's a lot of what I tell everybody. These and a lot of people, which I really appreciate and which really helps the community, chime in on a lot of posts and say, oh my gosh, those dogs are pulling you. You're not a small guy. That's terrible. But other people chime in and say, these dogs are not for the faint of heart. Huskies, sled dog breeds, working breeds are very energetic. I call it, they have an insatiable appetite for exercise, for work, etc. So someone had posted a video which I loved. They showed I don't know what breeds it were. Maybe I don't know what they were. They were flying down a field. I mean, probably going 30 miles per hour. And they said, imagine having this dog on your sofa all day. So they were trying to say, you're taking a working breed, and we try to, because our I guess our natural, in a modern day world, we want to of course, well, some people want to pamper everything, pamper their children, pamper their pets, and they want to take these working breeds sometimes and keep them on their sofa, try to make them lap dogs, which a lot of these dogs, especially Huskies, will rebel against that, and they'll become just nothing but problems. And that's why they wind up at shelters and rescues, because people get them, like I was mentioning earlier, because they see them on the big screen. They see them in the movies. They see them on TV commercials. Like, oh my gosh, that's the cutest dog in the world, blue eyes, whatever. And they get them as puppies a lot of times. And then they become adults, or they become a little older than puppies, not quite adults where they're terrible twos. They usually become adults at 2, people say, but they've just become a lot to handle at that point, because that's when they really need the engagement. And they needed the training along the way as a puppy that most people don't give them, because they're just cute and they get their way and all that good stuff. But when people realize, what do I do? That's when it hits the fan, and they've got to make some choices. And that's why what I do here, almost anyone could do. I know, Lucy, we're talking about getting the blueprints for, but people ask me, how do they get started? And I say, get a bicycle. If you're not the most physical person in the world, or you just don't feel like riding a bike, get an electric bike. They've got them everywhere. Sometimes they're cheaper than bikes. And put one of these springers. These are the actual springers I use that you can get off of Amazon. They're $100. I remember them. I used to sell them, actually. They used to be retail for less than 50. But these springers are made to mount under a bicycle seat, because that's where your center of gravity is. That's where all your weight is when you're riding. You're sitting down. So imagine this tether to your bike, or attached to your bike, the dog tethered there. If the dog sees a squirrel and wants to go the wrong direction, then it won't budge you. you'll feel the tug, but the spring will absorb it all. So Lucy NYU says, do you rescue your Huskies or go through a breeder? It can be a hot topic. So if you don't want to answer, I understand. I've gotten hate for going through a breeder for my Sammies. My dogs love going for bike rides. Exactly. So what I've usually done in the past, I've done it both ways. And a lot of times I'll go to breeders. If I want a specific look of a dog, I'll go to a breeder, but I'm looking for a dog that for some reason they have to get rid of. Not a dog that can't be necessarily they can't adopt, but a dog maybe that's had a medical issue, or a dog that's been problematic in some way and is not as adoptable. So usually, or a family that needs to get rid of a dog, etc. So that's usually the way I'll get the dogs, or I'll rescue them in that capacity. But my first dogs I did get, I bought from a breeder. I think getting them from a rescue is a wonderful, if you can rescue, it's a wonderful thing to do. So I'm kind of in between there, rescuing them in situations that the dogs probably wouldn't have been adopted, or they were returned because they were problematic, etc. To the breeder. What I try to do with my dogs is, and looks don't really matter. I mean, beauty's only skin deep with everything, but I like my dogs to, at one time I had all 4 white Huskies, and that's just what I was trying to do. And again, I was looking for Huskies that needed homes, but it was a little more challenging to find. So I would turn to the breeders and say, hey, if you have any Huskies that you need to get rid of for whatever reason, but that you're going to have a tough time rehoming otherwise, I'd like to get them. So, but after that, this generation now, I wanted to get all different looking ones, because in my basement, which you might have seen if you watch me, I've got almost a TV wall, which means there's 5 TVs or more. I can't remember now. Actually there's more, because there's others on the other walls that are constantly playing the videos and pictures of all my dogs. Of as long as I've been video them and picture taking, and I look up there and I say, oh my gosh, that's my first dog, Czar, back in 95. And oh my gosh, that's last week. We were at the, in Washington, D.C. We did the Washington, D.C. National Mall at one point. It was not last week, but I want to show you how recent it can be. And all these videos play, and I just, they're the happiest times of my life, besides being with my wife. But that's why I like to get different looking ones now that I'm older. So I hope that explains that. Lucy NYU says her dogs love going for bike rides. So yes, biking is so much fun. And that's how I started. Real quickly, because I know we're not on the topic. By the way, we're getting ready. We might have just chased the coyote. Did we do that? I want to take it back if we did. Let me see if I can get that back. Let's see where we're coming to. So trying to get here. Yeah, we chased it. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it, but give me 1 second here. Keep the questions and comments coming, folks. So I'm going to pay more attention to where we chased the coyote, because I want you to see it. But the bike rides are how I started. Real quickly, I got my first Husky, just like everybody I talked about. I get this Husky, and he was all white with blue eyes. We named him Czar because I knew Huskies were independent. And I said, Czar, he's the ruler. He's the master of this universe here. And he was the only dog in the house. And he was cute as a puppy. My wife and I were doing everything we were taught to do. Hey, Hallie Stevens, good afternoon, everybody. That's absolutely amazing, the TV wall. Thank you so much. And I don't know if you've seen it. Hopefully we'll do a broadcast in the near future from my home, and I'll be able to show you that and everything going on. I mean, I'll walk down and glance up, and I'll get a tear in my eye, because I'll be like, oh my gosh, that was like 20 years ago, and it feels like yesterday, and the dogs are no longer here, and it's tears of joy. But I mean, the biggest fault, if any, that dogs have is they don't live as long as us humans, and we all know that, being dog owners here, dog families. So it's hard. And the first dog I ever lost, Czar, who I'm talking about now, was just crazy. Actually, he wasn't the first. I lost my second dog before I lost Czar, but it was devastating in any case. So yeah, the TV wall, those memories help me. So I document everything I do, not really for social media, just for my benefit, because I want to cherish these memories. I hope to live a long life like we all do. And I'm hoping to have dogs all through my life, but if I could, when I'm older, I'm going to turn these memories on and just go to my resting place watching them and just remember all the time. So not trying to be too sad here, but that's why I video everything and take pictures like I do. But it gives me great content to post and help educate others. So Czar on the bike ride. So I get Czar as a puppy, and he was so cute. He was all white, blue eyes. He was like a fluff of a pillow fluff or whatever you want to call him. And then he looks up with these two blue eyes, and you couldn't resist him. So I got him, and my wife and I were doing everything we're supposed to, learning about a puppy. And we never really had dogs before, so we didn't know anything about it. I mean, her family maybe had a dog here and there. I don't think my family ever did. So we were really newbies. But when Czar got to be, I don't know if it was a year old, he was getting older. He was still a puppy. They puppies till they're 2, they say. And he started to be a little rambunctious, and it wasn't like we could tell him to chill out like when he was younger or when he was a few months or earlier. He needed some engagement, and I was like, I don't know what to do with him. So I get the Springer that I talked about that's on this bike, and with the Springer, I put him on my bike. I rode him around the block. I came back, and my wife said, "What'd you do to him?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? I thought something was wrong." She's like, "He just looked at me and went to sleep, and he just wants to sleep." And this was the time of the day that he would normally be rambunctious and getting wild and not doing what he was supposed to do. By the way, I think, and I'm sorry, I'm talking, I think we just came upon the coyote. That's the whole point of the show. I'm trying to show you this coyote. But that was my first experience in getting a dog on the bicycle, and it was so successful. We made it a regiment. We would bike so much every day or every other day. And be careful what you wish for, because he's got the traits in him and I was just adding to them by making him stronger and even more capable. He has it in him to begin with. So, but understand, when they're puppies still, before their growth plates meet, that means that they're done growing, usually around 2 years old. You shouldn't overtax them. They shouldn't be doing any pulling. Running on the bike is okay as long as you're not overworking them. And your veterinarian can guide you better, especially on different breeds. And the veterinarian can also take x-rays if you're anxious to know if the growth plates have met, and can tell you if it's safe to do all sports and to do pulling sports and to do actually the more harder work on the bike. But the little bit that we were doing was enough for him to get his fill until he got of the appropriate age. And then I got another husky. They're like contagious. Once you are successful with it, it keeps going. Rod, we have another question.
On Instagram, Zero Trace with a follow-up. I imagine if you did this with French bulldogs, and he's laughing emojis.
Yes. Well, that's a great question. Thank you. So, and a lot of people always say, I'm going to do this with my cats. I'm going to do this with my chihuahuas. But if you really go to alldogmush.com, just like it sounds, ALLDOGMUSH, you will see me with that Chinese crested I talked about. Again, 14 pounds. If you've seen some of our live videos at home when I feed them, I've actually had her in there. Her name is Gigi. She's done it. Now, again, people say you shouldn't make those dogs pull, and then I show them Gigi, and I'm like, she's not pulling me, right? You understand that? This thing is electric. It's like walking your dog. Now, the difference is, of course, when the weather changes and they can engage, they will pull. Right here yesterday, because once you start, and this is another thing a lot of people don't understand, and I'm not I don't know a lot about physics. I'm not an Albert Einstein, but once you get the wheels rolling, as long as you're level or going downhill, it's going to keep going. You don't need a lot of momentum. Going uphill, of course, you start the wheel rolling and it stops. You lose momentum. You're coming backwards. So on these trails, it's really easy for the dogs to pull. They're small wheels, 20-inch wheels, relatively speaking. So the bigger the wheel and the wider the wheel, you'll see me on these monster bikes. And there we go. We're chasing that coyote, folks. So I just posted this video, but you can see my co-pilot there running the coyote on wheels. And the dogs start to catch it, and he starts to freak. Now, it's not going to be bad if they catch it, and he crashes and burns. And notice the dogs, I keep them, they're contained within the footprint we're on, and that's why we're trail worthy and trail legal, and that's the genius of all the designs here. They can't, it's like you don't need a lead sled dog. So if you had a lead sled dog which is the dog that's out in front on a sled dog team. And that's usually on a standard, what they call a tug line or gang line, which is basically a rope. So you can imagine if the lead dog sees that coyote and they're not trained real good, or for whatever reason, just not listening, they pull one way, you're going that way. Rod, we got another question.
Instagram, we have Ice Fire Pumpkins. Good for you for figuring out how to meet their exercise needs.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that comment. And that's exactly what I'm trying to get across here, and teach people, help people, give people ideas, stimulate the mind, etc. Because there's a lot of ways to do what I'm doing. And I figured out this way, which is just really easy for me to do with the dogs and adventurous. It's like you want to do it. Yeah. Now, I always say the greatest thrill or joy for me is giving my dogs their greatest thrills and joys. So I love seeing them happy, seeing them engaged, seeing them doing healthy exercise that is really instinctual to them, like pulling, like running, chasing prey. But I don't want to ever expose them to anything that they could hurt or that could hurt themselves. It doesn't always work that way. Unfortunately, sometimes we've gone off leash, not with this generation, but the past generation. They see a wild animal at the farm. They grab it before you know which ends up, and it meets a terrible death because they shake it. It's quick, but it's terrible. So it's gory, and it's nothing you want to do. They're huskies. That's what they do. They're prey driven. So with that, that's instinctual engagement, but that's the kind I'm trying to keep them away from. So using the coyote on wheels and doing familiar exercises with them on the sled-like bike, that's what they know. That's, even though people say, well, the dogs weren't born to pull. Obviously, they're not born to pull, but they have all the traits to do it, these sled dog breeds. And they've evolved from humans breeding them to get to the state that they are today. Now, it's not the height of it, of course, but when they were needed for transportation, for long distances too, they wanted to maximize what they could do. Going through the frozen tundra, they bred these dogs to get the ultimate specimen. I mean, the humans really created them. And that's why, when I talk about this a lot, and I don't fully understand it because I'm not a scientist and I haven't done enough research on it, but I've done the kind of research that makes me understand. They've been bred. The reason they can go, some sled dogs can do 100 miles in a day, because of their metabolism. So their metabolism, they can control it. Of course, it's subconsciously, but they start burning their fat stores in their body. And there's scientific studies on this that scientists don't fully understand. So that's why some of these dogs, not all huskies are able to do this, but there's ones that were bred to do this, especially back in the day. And there's still people doing dog sledding, of course. So that's the kind of huskies, or that's the kind of sled dog they're looking for. So that metabolism control is really incredible. I mean, it blows my mind when I think about that. So people say, well, why do you do this with your dog? Why don't you take it for a walk? Well, my dogs here can go 25 plus miles in a day. And like I said, sled dogs, 100 miles in a day. Look at the Iditarod. So it's really part of their heritage and part of their body that they can do what they do. It's like, you see a deer outside in the winter in our area. I'm on the East Coast. And you say, oh my gosh, I feel bad. It's so cold out there. Well, they're built for that cold. That's how nature created them. And they can fend that off. I'm not saying you don't get terrible winters, and some could die off because of that, but usually they're made to tolerate and to handle those conditions. And in fact, you put a husky out in the snow, most of the time they want to stay out in the snow. It's in their blood. That's what they do. So really interesting aspects, and why I enjoy learning so much about it and sharing it with everybody. It's people don't understand this. So if you ever put it in Google, for instance, I have it on my website, sled dog metabolism. Read what you get, and you'll be fascinated. Rod, yes.
Jeremy again on Instagram, but another follow-up. Absolutely incredible.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. And hopefully through everybody here and through everything I do, we can really get the betterment for these dogs and people with a better understanding. At least not misinformation going out there that you should pamper huskies. I'm not saying you shouldn't spoil them and do everything they love to do, but keep in mind there's some couch potatoes. I've got a couch potato now named Lola, but they still need exercise and they need breed specific exercise to really have the full enrichment for these dogs. So what the technological enrichment I'm talking about is just taking technological things, the technology we have today, and using them to entertain our dogs. So almost all dogs love to chase. So this coyote on wheels, which is basically just a hunting decoy, a rubber coyote of substantial size, probably, maybe 3/4, maybe the size of a coyote, that is made to be mounted or put on something. So some people use them to chase maybe like animals away from their yard, whether they're deer they don't want to eat in the plants, or the cranes that eat fish out of people's ponds. So they'll put them on a similar RC car and just try to be there when the cranes are there to teach them to stay out of my yard. Some people use them to hunt, to attract animals, to flush them in a certain direction. I'm using them obviously for dog enrichment. So the cool thing about it is the dogs can get the enrichment. Nobody can get hurt. And like I mentioned, and if you saw my first version, which was last week, and I do this a lot, I'm constantly trying new ideas and new concepts to see how the dogs enjoy it, to see how it works for their health, to see how it works for their well-being, and to see how the equipment functions, how practical it is. Sometimes, we'll create something in a day or over the course of a year, and we get it out to the location, and it doesn't work the way we think it should. Rod, yes.
We got on Instagram, SB Josh. I need these for my huskies.
Exactly. Thanks so much for the comment. I truly appreciate that. So, yes, and that's why I've got a web page called alldog.com, and that will give you some of my designs. Now, it's all in a video format, so they're not exact measurements. I'm working, as Lucy can tell you from Lucy NYU, that I'm working on that now, and I hope to have those blueprints in the near future. But I am always available on comment section of most social media for you to ask if you need exact dimensions or something. Yes, Rod.
On TikTok, we have Junior Sabartes. Wow, that's really cool.
Hey, thank you so much, Junior. I really appreciate you taking the time to comment, just like everybody else here. I appreciate the support, and I do a lot of stuff. Again, I'm a little bit to the extreme because, like I said, we'll come up with these ideas and I'll implement them. Sometimes I can do it in a day. Sometimes it usually takes longer. It's a year. But we get out. I test them around where I live first, usually, just by myself to see if they're going to work, and then get the dogs involved to see how the dogs react, how they handle it, what kind of pressures they put on it, if it's equipment they're going to be attached to, etc. And Lucy NYU, which setup in the bike do you prefer? This one, or the other one? Yes, blueprints, please. LOL. So it depends. The other one, it depends on the dogs. So Lucy's asking which setup I prefer. And I'm going to take a question here. Rod, yes?
Yeah, from Instagram, we have CCSS LLC. This is awesome. I wish more dog trainers would bring attention to healthy exercise.
Thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate that. And we're going to make that happen as a community, bring it to more people's attention. And I know there's just not enough people out there talking about the enrichment these dogs need, especially dogs like huskies that are so misunderstood. So let me try to get my screen back here. Hope that has Lucy, I haven't forgot your question. I got one more question up there. I'm trying to do them all together. So my last name is said like new. Sorry. Hope that helps. Lucy New. Okay, sorry. We make these assumptions, and when I assume, I make an ass out of me. So I'm sorry about that, Lucy. Thank you. Lucy New. So with the bike setup, she's asking because I run the dogs on these different style bikes that I've designed, and the difference between them at least most of the ones that I'm showing lately, is what I call the mushing bar. So there's a mushing bar that has what I call U bars. It's an upside down U, where each dog has essentially their own roll cage, and they're tethered on 2 points. So that particular configuration gives you the most control of the dogs. So you could take that through, I've taken that through Baltimore City, for instance, because I know the dogs will not step outside of that footprint. They can't. So we will occupy the smallest minimal amount of space that the dogs need. Now, that being said, so that makes us really welcome on trails when they're crowded, really welcome on more city-like areas, urban areas. Some people live in very urban areas. They can't get to a park where they have some space of their own, essentially. So that's what makes it possible. In addition, giving the dogs less range of motion and less leverage makes it possible to work them in warmer temperatures. Of course, never when it's hot, but in temperatures you wouldn't actually work the dogs, because in that configuration, with you controlling the brakes and it has a motor assist, the dogs are going to only get so much exertion, and that means we can keep them from overworking or overheating. So Lucy, no need for sorry. I like the way you say NYU. That's clever. I'm just so used to dealing with schools and everything. Thank you so much. So I think that's a really important part of the training. And that design I had for a while. That's what we did. I had to complement that with other designs, other ways of giving them exercise, because they're constrained there. They're not going to get the full range of motion. So they're not going to get to explore all their instincts when you would want them to in the winter, because they're not getting to pull as much with that smaller design. And by the way, let me change the video here to the other part of the day. And Rod, tell me when this is full screen. Is that good? Good right there. So that's the U-bar design, Lucy. So this design that we're looking at right here gives them more range of motion, more leverage, and it's easier to build. So if you're in an area where you can access trails like I'm on here, even crowded trails, but the dogs can expand past the width of the bike. So that means sometimes they might be able to get in other people's lanes. So it can be a little more precarious using this. They're not overly capable. It's not going to get way too wide like you would on a regular dog sled with a tug line and the lead sled dog in front, and it decides to go left or right, and that the dogs are in the woods. Definitely not that. This is still keeping a contained footprint, but this is giving them more leverage and more range of motion, so they're getting more exercise essentially, or at least more intensity. So and this is something that, I mean, you could pretty much build in a day. So if you want to start somewhere, you can certainly start here. The only thing is, I make these, I still gotta blueprint it a little bit, because I'm using a piece of metal that all of my fittings fit over top of and make it modular, and they slide and they adjust not only for portability, but also to control the dogs better, to separate them or keep them tighter together, whatever you may need. So, but wait, and there's one more design, but it looks just like this, which is further out, and it gives the dogs even more space. And that's, again, in the colder months when trails are less crowded. Again, you're still going to be somewhat contained, so they're not going to be able to do what they would on a normal dog sled. That's the whole idea of design here. But they are going to be able to get the maximum range of motion and leverage. Keep in mind, I also run them on the sides sometimes, like on the bikes, like we talked about, using springers. On different configurations. So actually, I hope to, if things go as planned, Friday maybe do one of my speed bikes where they are totally on the side, or when it gets a little cooler, use the weight vest out in the field and use one of the bikes that's a little heavier and more configured the way I've designed it, to actually put the weight vest on the dogs and keep them from bouncing so much, because I don't want them to injure themselves with more weight. I just want them to gradually to walk more gently. So I've got more designs than you can shake a stick at. The other design, the Seiko cart. I didn't design the Seiko cart. That you can go on SeikoDogCart.com and buy a Seiko cart right now. The only bummer is, I mean, they're great machines, and they contain the dog too in a narrow footprint. that will make you almost all trail worthy like I do. The only difference is, and the dog can pull it, there's no motor on there. So you can motorize them if you're technologically capable, which they need, because you can't really, the only way to assist the dogs, they sell a back platform that you can stand on and you can lean over and steer it, and you can use it like a musher would. Complete Canine Services and Supplies, LLC. Do you have a design for 10 dogs? Great question. Thank you so much. So at this point, the most, without using a regular gang line or tow line, is a 6-dog design, which we have 4 dogs in front and 2 behind. So that's the most we have the design for right now. 10 dogs is kind of hard because you're really pushing the balance of the equipment, because most of this equipment is commercially produced for people. And the strain that dogs, especially pulling dogs like sled dogs, put on them is pretty intense. So when you start getting into 10 dogs, I mean, you really start talking some mega power, which everything would need to be beefed up in a capacity that we're not doing right now. When you start getting to that many dogs, what you would want to do is start having this. The genius about these bars here is they're all cantilevered. So they're supported by the bike frame, which means there's absolutely no weight on the dogs. So that's actually key. And when you hit a pothole, when you hit a divot, when you need to go up a curb, with that, you can actually, with this, the bar will flex and it won't come down on the dog. The underbelly of the bar has protectors on it, for lack of a better description, that will stop it from putting weight on the dog. Now, everything's really light. Nothing's going to hurt the dog, no matter how it would interact with this bar, no matter how it would happen in the field. But because that's always my main goal. And that's why you see foam on everything. You see dog toy, the Holy Roller dog ball toys, everything. Because anything that could ever touch a dog would be padded, would be cushioned, so it can never put any kind of damaging injury on the dog, of course. But 10 dogs is a bigger design. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Complete Canine Services and Supplies, LLC says. So yeah, so we don't have that. But I will mention, still only for 4 dogs. If you see me on the ATV, the Spider Rig bar, that's a 4-dog configuration too. It's possible. I mean, I don't know. I don't make that, and I can always put you in contact with the gentleman that builds those. If they would suggest you doubling dogs up, you might be able to and get 8 dogs on that configuration, because I know a lot of people have ATVs, so that's a great design too. I mix it all up. I really enjoy challenging the dogs, and I enjoy doing different things, and I feel like all the different avenues we can take them on, no pun intended there, whether they're on the side of the bike, whether they're out in front of the bike, using a weight vest, whether they're on the ATV, giving them challenging terrain that they've got to climb and go, and then giving them flat terrain, asphalt that they've got to, that works and helping their pads and their claws, etc. All of it makes for the complete workout, the complete exercise regimen. So it's hard to do it all, but that's what's so cool about the mushing bar, because it incorporates a lot of capabilities. Having just one bar, it's just how you outfit it. Almost like it's a bad description, but almost like something from IKEA. You know, their legs might fit a bunch of different tables, so you can pick whatever table you want to do. If you want to change your design for the month, for a night, whatever, you can do that. So if you want to run the dogs differently, you can change it all around. So it's pretty interesting, and that's always my best designs, is the ones that are usually modular, that can be worked in different ways, because everything takes up space, everything takes up time, and when you can change them out pretty easily, it works out good. So that's pretty much it, because we're coming up on 50 minutes we've been on here, which is great. Any more questions or comments? I'll hang around for another couple minutes explaining this. So what I'm so impressed, and I've been using this technological enrichment, what I call technological enrichment, is the Coyote on wheels. We're going to be introducing, I'm hoping later this week or next week, sounds. So I got a sound generator that's really made for hunters that will generate all kinds of sounds. So I want to see how the dogs react to that in the field and how it engages them. I know for a fact, because I've witnessed it, birds with loud sounds, the dogs start looking around. They're not as usually amped up on a bird unless it's on the ground or in their range that they feel. They don't get me wrong. I've had dogs catch birds. Usually, obviously, they're not flying when they catch them. But Haley, I hope you have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you for another great live. Love seeing the girls having fun and run. Thank you again so much, Haley. Can't tell you how much I always appreciate that. So the sounds are going to be a lot of fun. Wait till we do that next time. And I've got the robot, and the robot is really a technological feat, for lack of a better description, for what it can do. So we have to learn it better because it's supposed to be able to go 11 miles per hour. We took it to our trail on Friday where I had the Seiko cart with all the different colors with the bars that go around the dogs horizontally. And we had it out there and we thought we could get it up to 11 miles per hour, but the dogs were just faster than it. So I held the dogs back and I had it walking with the dogs again, just to desensitize them, give them enrichment, give them a different view, something else to think about, to focus on for a second. So it was still fun, and I think it was entertaining for them, but we're not to the level where if it could go 11 miles per hour, we can go about 20 miles per hour, but usually we're walking a pace anywhere from 4 to 6 miles per hour. So it can walk with us a lot of the way, and that would be a little different for the dogs. With my co-pilot, it has autonomous mode, which is a little scarier because it's the way that it controls its obstacle avoidance gets a little funkadelic, for lack of a better description. It'll run into things. Certainly don't want it running into the dogs. I mean, it's not going to hurt them per se, but I don't want to totally freak them out. And I'm using it for enrichment, not to scare them, obviously. But don't want it to run on the bike and me to run over it. So I'm like, we're trying to find the right balance there. If my co-pilot's controlling it, he can keep it in more of a format that can sometimes get in front of us and lead us, and sometimes walk with us or trot with us, which is really cool. And again, that other form of enrichment, I'd like to expose the dogs to. So we're working on that. We're working on the sound machine, and we've got the Coyote on wheels. But I wanted to say that yesterday, I'm not going to call it warm, but it wasn't cool. It was a seasonable day, 70-degree range, like I mentioned. The ground was 65, humidity was about 57%. And the dogs that was one of the highest for this time of year, because I log a lot of our runs on some of these different apps between Strava I've been using lately, and I use Relive, etc. So I can go back in time, I can compare to my other dogs, etc. But by the way, we're passing a really beautiful lake here. But for that's this time of year, that was we were at the top end of our normal pace, about, I don't know if it's 5.7 or 5.9 miles per hour. That's an average speed of over 10 miles, almost 10 and a half miles it was. So that's really impressive. And I can only contribute it to the dogs with the Coyote. And it was only 2 experiences we did yesterday, and they were short-lived. I mean, they were all of a minute, maybe the other one was 2 minutes, because when my co-pilot starts to lose sight of it, we're going to put a light on it next time so we can see it further down the trail. And we have to make sure the trail's clear where we're using it. Of course, we can jump into the woods with it, but it's harder to see ahead, so it becomes challenging for him. But why were the dogs so engaged? And I'm gonna say it was that. So, and then when we saw a squirrel, I mean, they were like, the turbo was engaged instantly. It's pretty cool stuff. So as we get closer to winter, as the days get colder, hopefully we'll be able to extend the Coyote exposure, because that right now is the most engaging for them of the technological enrichment that I'm doing. So that should be interesting. By the way, we can change the Coyote to another decoy, but I run the dogs on something that's called lure coursing, and this is another subject we'll get to at some point. Part of technological enrichment. Lure coursing has been around for many years, and it was actually originally designed for sighthounds, because it's a flag that they put on a pulley system, and it can cover acres of land. And sighthounds can do a lap. I mean, their endurance is, of course, the opposite end of the spectrum of a husky, but they hunt with their eyes, where most dogs hunt with their nose. So they have excellent vision. So they can see this flag acres away, and they will chase this flag accordingly. Now, they'll do a lap or two, depending how big of the course, and they'll be done at least for a while, if not for the day. The Huskies will look at you like they'll hunt it sometimes, and it's only a flag, but they'll chase it. And I've had Huskies do it for like 12 miles, just going round and round. Now we'll change it up. We'll take it the other way. The idea is you can change the course around, but they usually don't do that every day. Usually it's a couple times they do it for these dogs and they're done. With a Husky, over 12 miles, my dog's chasing this flag. I'm like, dude, are you bored of this yet? I couldn't believe he was just so engaged. Some of the Huskies love it. Some of the Huskies could care less. So right now, Nikita and Lola are the big ones that chase it, but they still don't chase it as much as I'm talking about Zorro. Lola more than Nikita. Well, I don't know. Nikita's pretty good too. Cyan and Inyo, come see, come saw. They're so with it. So really interesting, but that's technological enrichment. So that flag has no scent. That flag, sometimes they will get in their mouth. That flag, they know what it is, and they still chase it because it's the movement that catches their eye and entices them. So the decoy coyote, same thing. They know it's fake. They know it doesn't have a smell. They've touched it. They've been next to it, but the lure of the chase. So that's why these different aspects work the way they do with the dogs, and it really gives them a healthy outlet to engage these instincts and to safely release them. That's what it's all about here. But I was just so impressed by their performance just from a couple times getting stimulated by this coyote. And every time my co-pilot would come through with the coyote, it's sitting up on the front of his bike. I mean, it's pretty funny if you saw us, and I'm going to post a video about it, hopefully today or tomorrow. But the dogs, when they got near him, they still were overly attracted to him. And I'm like, well, is he wearing some kind of cologne or scent they like? And then I said, no, it's that coyote. That they just know that coyote's there, and they're thinking that thing could launch, and it's not long. We got to pick it up, put it down the ground. But I'm sure the way their mind works, that thing could just get up and fly, and they're on it. So I'm Wolf Driver. I really appreciate everybody's comments, support, and time. Hope you got something out of this. And if you're watching the rebroadcast, never hold back. Always give me your comments, your questions. If you comment or question or anything else, post anything on any of my media out there on social media and in my post, I'm happy to respond. And every time someone who is knows what I'm doing, has been been a fan for longer, sees that, if you respond to people, that's great also. Because I saw someone saying that they're making him pull that he's making the dog pull that guy, whatever. And then someone said it's motorized. Like, oh, I didn't even have to get involved, but I don't mind. I love it. Have a great day, everybody. Once again, I'm the Wolf.